Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 43 of the Serial Chillers podcast. I am your host, Jesse, and thank you for stopping by. On today's show, Dean Corll. Elmer Wayne Henley and David Brooks were some accomplices, so you'll hear about them too. We have all guests from across the internet. As always, co-host Greg meets us from his bunker underground somewhere. Emily and Caitlyn join us from Florida. I believe Caitlyn taught us to pronounce the last time she was here. We all had a little fun putting this one together, and we hope you enjoy it as much as we enjoyed putting it together. And as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Serial Chillers podcast. All right, I'm going to start it up, you guys. Welcome to episode 43 of the Serial Chillers podcast, 43 of 1 million. Don't forget, I am here in studio with no one, sitting here lonely, staring at some people across the country and in a bunker underground somewhere far away. Co-host Greg, how goes it?
It goes well.
How is the bunker tonight?
It's nice.
A little early for
cozy.
us. The sun may have been up when you went down to the bunker. Did anybody see you go in?
Can't tell. No windows.
All right.
Are you low on supplies?
Nope.
Cool.
Nope. Went out and re-upped. I dug up one of my 55-gallon drums of canned food.
Fully prepared and ready to go.
I burned through the MREs.
Welcome, as always, co-host Greg. And returning to the show, this time across the internet, last time in studio, Caitlyn. Hello. You got a lot of positive reviews last time you were on the show, I have to say.
Great. Thank you.
Go look through the comments if you ever need a confidence booster.
Was it all my family?
There was no people that were your family that I'm aware of. So good job last time.
Thanks.
It was
I'll
a lot
check
of
it out on my sad days.
It was a lot of fun. So I'm expecting a high level from you. That's really all there is to it.
I'm ready for a win.
Also across the internet, a guest provided by a guest. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Emily.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Emily.
Okay, you guys, at the top of the show, I always give everybody the chance if they'd like. No pressure, because I'll edit it out if you don't. You guys want to throw out social media, any plugs, anything like that?
Well,
Yeah,
no.
right out the window.
According to social media, it is National Siblings Day, so I think it would be appropriate to shout out the one and only Bigfoot.
Yes. BIGGFOOT.
Designs.
Yes.
Check him out. That's my bro.
Perfect.
Yes.
You guys have heard him on the show 37 times or so.
Right.
You guys all know Casey. But of course, siblings, what a loving act. Because my sibling would be like, National Siblings Day, I don't fucking have any.
Jesse.
I'm actually an only child.
And I have a sister. Hey.
Hey. Yes, you have a very cool family, as it turns out, now that I'm thinking about
Thank
it. Yes. So welcome back, Caitlyn. Welcome for this first time, Emily.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Co-host Greg, are you ready to get this thing rolling?
Yes.
You guys know how the show works, but let me explain it for anybody that doesn't. Each week I sit down with old friends, new friends, good friends, and bad friends to tell the story of an infamous serial killer. Throughout the show, you guys can chime in on my story, and if you have anything to add in, true crime, dark, creepy, unsolved, or otherwise mysterious. Lastly, if you have questions about any of the questions, make sure to ask questions, because I cannot answer questions about questions if you don't ask questions. Do you guys have any questions?
At all.
No, yeah, that's very clear.
Perfect.
9.9.
Then welcome to and let's play the Serial Chillers podcast.
6 from the Russian judge.
I never stumble on that either, son of a bitch. All right. Okay, you guys. Now is the moment of truth.
So excited.
So nervous.
Today's serial killer is long overdue Dean Corll.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I have no idea who that is.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Well, hey.
no, I'm drawing a blank.
Then that is wonderful because if you guys are into the graphic details, you'll have to go somewhere else because I don't have too much. But we are going to describe a lot of murder today. So,
Yay!
yes.
Yeah, sounds all right.
I think that's not the appropriate response.
Hey, you're not their supervisors. Well, as
Got me
always, question number 1. In what year is Dean Corll born? Closest to the answer gets 250 points. We're
I'm just saying it out loud, or do you
verbal
want me to write
answers
it?
tonight.
I said 1962. I feel like he was like in the 60s. Maybe it's the name Dean. I don't know. That felt good to me.
62 from Emily. Caitlyn.
I went 1974 for no particular reason.
Oh, young gun, did you?
Can I throw a guess out there? Because I know you told me who it was, but that's as much. I'm just going off my own knowledge at this point because you still didn't send me an outline.
Pointless. It's pointless, too.
I'm gonna say 1936.
Oh, I should have went old.
Yeah.
Oh, man. You guys are feeling unsure because of Greg's answer?
Mm-hmm.
You guys must
Well, it
not
was
know
rigged.
Greg
He knew
very
who it
well.
was.
So, Dean Arnold Corll was born December 24th, Christmas Eve, 1939. God damn co-host
All right,
Greg.
he old.
But he doesn't get to get any points. So, Emily, 250 points for you.
Woo!
He's a co-host. We've already made very clear throughout several episodes, he does not matter.
I don't get paid around here.
So Dean is born on Christmas Eve, 1939 in Fort Wayne, Indiana. He's the first child of Mary Robinson and Arnold Edwin Corll, who was actually born on my birthday just a few years earlier. Corll's father was strict with his son, whereas his mother was very protective. There's no real evidence of any direct abuse that I can see in his childhood, but there's a lot of fighting between his mom and his dad. There's a lot of
Mommy and Daddy at the dinner table.
I was just gonna say it's okay, Dean, it's okay. Like there, and think about it. We're talking, 1944. His dad probably had a glass of Scotch whiskey and a cigarette, and he was like, the backhands for discipline.
Yeah.
You
I was gonna
understand
say,
this,
his mom
Dean?
probably had a black eye.
Yeah, it's.
Oh,
Yeah.
It was very, it says that their marriage was marred by frequent quarreling. Yes. So in 1940.
That's a nice way of saying he
Damn
was
quarreling.
drunk and a jerk.
So in 1946, they get a divorce. So at this time, Dean is 7, and they have a 4-year-old son, Stanley.
no.
Yeah. Mary Corll subsequently sold the family home and relocated to a trailer home in Memphis, Tennessee, where Arnold Corll had been drafted into the U.S. Air Force after the divorce, in order that her sons could retain contact with their father. So she moved with their dad, even though they weren't together anymore.
What a swell lady.
That's what I kind of thought when I read this. But she is very, throughout all of this, and I mean all of this, remains very. She's on her son's side. She's very supportive. Yeah,
What a
she's
lovely boy.
Like Bates
You can do no
Motel
wrong.
supportive, or
like unconditionally supportive.
Like,
okay.
that's right, sweetie. You kill those people. You can kill as many.
She's like his biggest
Sky's the limit.
cheerleader.
I think
You can do this. I believe in you.
I think more like she maintained his innocence.
Okay.
Mom,
Bless
I
her.
did it.
Yes.
No.
Is
No, you-
Stanley a little weirdo, or did he grow up normal? Or
That is the last time I will mention Stanley.
okay,
There's,
so nothing
there's
fun with
there's
Stanley.
just nothing. Yeah, I always am interested in that too, because not that his older brother was a killer, but was abducted. The Stainer brothers, like his older brother went through a very traumatizing. Why can't I think of Carrie and who? Greg, what's the older brother's name?
Steven.
Steven Stainer was abducted, and thank you, co-host Greg, coming in the clutch once more. Boom.
For 0 points.
Correct. Caitlyn, I forgot that
I
you were
got
the other
points
co-host.
last week.
He did get 100 points last week. You have to give $1 million a month to the Patreon to find out why, though.
I give him 5 points today for the colorful Dare t-shirt he's wearing.
Oh,
It's important to keep kids off drugs.
Yeah.
it's very important. I believe the DARE program has been abolished.
I think so.
It's because it made more
No,
kids
they
do
just
drugs.
they just said no. They're still doing it.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Points.
Yes, exactly. So let's go back to Dean. He was a shy, serious child who seldom socialized with other children, but at the same time displayed concern for the well-being of others. He's a very empathetic young man, but
Interesting.
he was empathetic from a distance, I believe. There was never much. And I normally when you're researching, I mean, I try to use as many sources as possible, but a lot of
It's
times,
okay if you just use Wikipedia. You can
right?
have
That's, I mean, essentially for this one, this Wikipedia had the best narrative, and that's a lot of what we use here. This is very consistent. Is that Dean was just a very lonely kid, and from all of the people that knew him and from school and growing up, he was just a lonely child. He had no one.
He's a lone wolf.
Little Dean. At the age of 7, he suffered an undiagnosed case of rheumatic fever, which was only noticed in 1950 when doctors found Corll had a heart murmur. As a result of this diagnosis, he was ordered to avoid PE at school. So he got a doctor's note to avoid any type of physical activity. So we're only adding to this poor kid's
Of course, he
despair.
has no friends.
Right.
He's not getting picked for dodgeball. He's sitting on the sidelines with his tube socks.
And just going like,
Hey, I
"Ooh,
took
are
gym
you
all night
okay?"
in high school, but I had friends. I just didn't want to take gym.
See, it don't let it define you.
Yeah.
So, his parents, I think because of them finding out about Dean's condition, they both come together again. They attempt reconciliation and remarried in 1950, subsequently moving to Pasadena, Texas. The reconciliation was short-lived, and 3 years later, they once again divorced. The mother once again retaining custody of both Dean and Stanley. Strong names. Their divorce was decreed on amicable grounds, and both boys remained in regular contact with their father. So again, they seem to have been like, all right, this was dumb, right? We shouldn't have done this. Yeah, I think
A little
you're
more
right.
quarreling
Yeah.
happened, and she was like, nah, not this time again.
Just the quarreling, Greg. Verbal only.
No, it was the name.
Following
Get it?
Corll, I gotcha.
Oh.
But now I'm in. Following the second divorce, Corll's mother married a traveling clock salesman named Jake Clock. No, I'm just kidding. His name was Jake West. What is this, Beauty and the Beast? Jake and the family moved to the small town of Vidor, where Corll's half-sister Joyce was born in 1955. Upon advice from pecan nut salesman, Corll's mother and stepfather started a business. Question number 2. What type of business did they start? Were they A, nut suppliers, B, industrial cleaning, C, general store, or D, candy shop?
All right. Only because I feel like it would be too easy to go nut sales, right?
Well, I mean,
Candy
if I was
shop.
a nut
I was
salesman,
gonna
I wouldn't want more
You don't want
competition.
competition, right?
It seems like a slim market.
I'm
Yeah.
going candy shop.
Emily, candy shop as well?
I was also going to say candy shop just because
Okay.
I feel like it's really creepy. Like that just adds to like the fear element. Like, oh, it's the candy shop killer. Or
It doesn't
something.
feel too creepy to you guys? Like it would be like maybe a fake answer because it's so creepy?
Mother.
Nope. 2 answers locked in for candy shop, and both of you guys are scoring points because his family did indeed run a small family candy company and shop named Pecan Prince. Yes.
Named what?
The Pecan Prince. So I think they bought the pecans from this guy, and they made these little pecan turtles, candies, yeah. And they got dope.
Dang.
So,
What a business.
what
Yeah.
a business. Okay, so Emily is ahead 500 to 250.
Woo-hoo.
Anybody's game? I believe we've got 8 questions today. It could be 43. I can't remember how many. I think it's 8
Let's
though.
do it.
It's closer to 8 than 43. So they've got the small family candy company, Pecan Prince, initially operating from the garage of their home. From the earliest days of the family's candy business, Corll was working day and night while still attending school. He was so fucking dedicated to this candy company, you guys. Like,
Regular Willy Wonka.
well, his parents gave them tasks of, like running certain machines or packaging product. But Dean would go above and he would stay. He wasn't getting paid. It was his job. These were his chores, but he would stay and he would pack longer and he would run the machines longer and make more candy. And he was
Seems like a respectable boy.
at this point.
Did he get to test it?
I think
That's like my dream.
That's probably why he stayed so long. He was so thin. I don't get it. I just don't get it. So he and Stanley both had a lot of jobs in there. The stepfather sold it out on the route. The mom kind of maintained the shop, and they were just a small family candy business. They kind of ran it real nice. The route that the stepfather ran would often take him to Houston. That's apparently where a lot of the product is sold. Now, a lot of our story is going to take place in the neighborhood inside Houston called the Heights. The Heights was not a very nice place at this time, from what I understand. It was like a pioneer town, essentially, to begin. And we're talking about 40s, 50s here and into the 70s. And it never seemed to lose that spirit. I listened to the last podcast on the left to kind of brush up on Dean's story. And they mentioned how even into the 70s, it was still very much like a Wild West town and a very understaffed police department. Because at some point within this time in Houston and in the Heights, for 1.2 million citizens, there were something like, I want to say it was like 4,800 police officers, and there was no missing persons unit at all, and a ton of murders just weren't even investigated. Yeah, it was just so. I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a lead up to what we're gonna kind of get into very soon. So from 1954 to 58, Dean attended Vidor High School, where he was regarded as a well-behaved student who achieved satisfactory grades. Me too, bro. As had been the case in his childhood, he was considered somewhat of a loner and is also known to have occasionally dated girls in his teenage years. Question number 3. In high school, what instrument did Dean play? Was it A, the cornet, B, trumpet, C, tuba, or D, trombone?
Dang it.
I'm going to go with clarinet.
Cornet?
What is it? Clarinet?
Cornet.
Cornet. I actually don't know what that is, but
I don't even know that I do either. But one time, Caitlyn, your brother, told me
I'm having deja vu
that I would never.
Harvey Blackman played the cornet.
Yes. Ooh, could it be a coincidence? And did Dean as well?
I'm going trumpet because I don't think there's a double cornet murder player.
No coincidence, and the cornet says Caitlyn. So you say trumpet?
Trumpet.
All right. No one's getting points on this one because in high school, Corll's only major interest was the brass band in which he played the trombone. Womp, 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 womp.
What a loser. Talk about myself.
So, I'm talking about myself. You can insult Dean Corll. I know you haven't really heard the shit he's got into, but I assure you it is not good. Nothing that remains on this outline is positive, really. So in 1962, Dean is now 23 years old, and he's returned to Houston, back to the promised land. He left for a very short time to take care of a sick grandmother. He said, what? fucking
Yeah, he is like
sweetheart.
kind of nice, but I know this is
Yeah.
going downhill.
In,
Really
nine-
is all over the
in 1964, he is drafted into the Army. Nam. While in the Army, he's thought to have... this is when he discovered that he was a homosexual man. So during his time, he realized that those occasional girls he dated in high school was not for him any longer. During the time he was in the Army, his mother also divorced the second husband. So what is to happen to the Pecan Prince? And
Is it still in the garage at this point?
they had grown.
It has expanded.
Okay.
They were a brick and mortar at this point.
Cool.
In 1965, he's released from the Army on a hardship discharge. So I think it had a lot to do with the divorce and it took a lot away from his family. So he had to go back to support his family, and he was able to get out of the Army for that reason. Following his hardship discharge, which is an honorable discharge, by the way, he returned to Houston Heights and resumed the position he had held as vice president of the family's candy business. You guys.
Dang, he's vice president.
In it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's fucking dedicated. He was the VP before he left, came back, was like, step out the way.
You're in my seat.
Back in business.
You're in my seat, yes.
This is my pecans.
So, his former stepfather had retained ownership of the former candy business following the divorce in 1963, but competition between the two firms was fierce. So, there was a battle for this candy company because it balled. And the stepfather, he won out in the end. Yes. So, just like his teenage years, Dean picked up right where he left off, increased the number of hours he devoted to the candy business tenfold to satisfy an increasing demand for his family's product. In 1965, the Corll Candy Company, which it's now renamed, good call, relocated to 22nd Street directly across from the Houston Helms Elementary School. Corll was known to give free candy to local children.
Oh no.
In
From
particular,
his windowless van.
in particular, teenage boys. As a result of this behavior, he earned himself a nickname. Question number 4. What was the nickname he was given? Was it the Candy Man?
That was not creepy.
Was it the Chocolatier? The Gumball Guy? Or the Third Musketeer?
Candyman can, cause he mixes it with love and makes the world taste blue.
Stop. Any more, we have to pay for it.
Budget cuts. Budget cuts.
Caitlin says
There is no
Candyman.
budget.
I'm also gonna say Candyman.
Yeah, I really wanted to put the nickname question in there, but I didn't think anybody would not guess Candyman. So you guys are both going to get 250 points because indeed, no creativity with that crowd. Come on. He gives you candy, you call him the Candy Man, all right? What do you call the guy who delivers milk to your back door the milkman? What is this?
Too
Why
easy,
wouldn't you just call him the creep that hands out free candy to boys?
right?
I think a lot of people did.
What
No.
is the grandpa's name on Family Guy? You know, the creepy whistling grandpa.
Oh, that's Herbert the
Herbert the
pervert. He's
pervert.
not the grandpa.
Well, I mean, he is a grandpa.
Maybe.
Mm,
Better call me back, you pickly bitch.
I got popsicles for you.
Oh my God, that's so good.
That's pretty creepy.
Okay. So the company also employed a small workforce, and Dean was seen to behave flirtatiously towards several of the male teenage employees. He's also known to have installed a pool table at the rear of the candy factory where employees and local youths would congregate.
Boys only.
He would say things like, "Come around to the rear and play with
boy.
my balls.
Oh,
Why don't you bend over this table here?"
Just stop.
Okay.
So, yeah.
We can edit that out so we don't get more emails.
Nah, we're gonna leave
Emails.
it in. They know your email address now. They go to you directly.
Yeah, it's true.
So, in 1968, his mother meets a new man, a merchant seaman.
Mary.
This marriage also only lasted 2 years. In 1969, he turned 30, and everybody who describes him says that he has a weird personality shift at the age of 30. He starts to kind of get a little loose cannon-y, it seems. Like he's giving into his impulses a little more, I think.
Am I going to have a weird shift when I turn 30 next month?
No. Just I mean,
Only
you're in
time will
Florida.
tell.
Yeah, you go ahead. Yeah, Florida's. I'll get to read the police reports for sure. It's great. So in 1970, he's now 30, and he meets David Brooks, who was just a 12-year-old boy at the time. He gave him candy. They hung out together. It seemed as if he had kind of, I mean, we're talking 1970 here as well, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is even prior to the dubbing of the term serial killer. And I may be incorrect with that, and I'll also hear about it either way. But we're very early in it, if not. So this is I think it's a lot more common in 1970 to have seen like an older man who was like working to be like, this 12-year-old kid comes and helps me at the shop. Like when I was a 12-year-old kid, there was a guy who had a wood shop in my neighborhood who I used to like go sweep the floor for $5 a week or whatever. Not once did he ever try to diddle me.
Yeah, do you need to?
Yeah. I don't believe that I have any repressed memory. No, but
now you're gonna get an email.
Yeah, so he's he's hanging out with David Brooks, this 12-year-old kid. But after some time, Dean would convince Brooks to allow Dean to perform sexual acts on him for cash. So he's paying David to let him blow him, essentially.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Slippery slip from there.
And what's even weirder still is that, the relationship is described as very father-son. Like he looked up to Dean and saw him as a father figure. So that's not, listen, if that's how your dad's doing you guys, it's not right.
There's an issue.
Yes. So, David Brooks was, I don't know how to describe it. He was a kind of a funny looking kid. And one of the big things that David Brooks will later note is that when he first met Dean, he's one of the only people that didn't like mention his looks, like didn't make fun of him. He didn't like mention it at all. He just saw past it and saw David Brooks. So it was like why he was so enamored with Dean Corll.
His authentic self.
Yeah.
Candy shop.
Hey everybody, this is Jesse from the Serial Chillers podcast.
And this is Greg across the internet, as always.
As always. And we're here to talk to you about the Fame and Misfortune podcast. It's a podcast with two lovely young ladies from the beauty industry who got together and did a little celebrity true crime.
It's very cool. They cover stuff like not The Simpsons, O.J. Simpson, Kurt and Courtney, and the Kennedys versus Hollywood gossip.
Yeah, gossip out, facts in. And they give you some health, skin, and beauty tips in the podcast as well. So double whammy.
Boom. It's worth it.
Yeah.
Visit them at fameandmisfortunepodcast.com.
Or listen bi-weekly on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podomatic, and SoundCloud. In the winter of 1971, Brooks introduced Elmer Wayne Henley to Dean Corll. Henley was likely lured to Corll's address as an intended victim. However, Corll evidently decided the youth would make a good accomplice and offered him the same that he had now began offering Brooks, $200 for any boy that they could lure to his apartment, informing Henley that he was involved in a white slavery ring operating out of Dallas.
What?
Just took a turn. So David Brooks and Elmer Wayne Henley, I believe they're both 15 at this point now. He says, you bring me boys, and I'll give you $200 each. I'm in this white slavery ring where we put these white kids into slavery. It's just like it sounds.
Here.
And you know, if you want to be a part of it, cool. So, question number 5. It's about to get real.
Oh, God.
How many will Dean and Co. kill according to tonight's list? Closest to the answer gets 250 points. If somebody nails it, 1,000 points. How many are they going to kill?
According to tonight's list.
Yo. And I'll tell you why I say tonight's list, because there are some controversial numbers that could plus or minus 1 to 4. Tonight's list is, I'm calling the unofficial official list. How many's gonna be?
13.
Caitlin says 13.
23.
Emily says 23. Greg, do you want to take a stab just for funsies?
No,
Ew.
I'm just kidding. Give me 19.
Greg's going to say 19. Emily's going to get the points because
Wow.
Dean, Wayne, and young Mr. Brooks, by tonight's list, are going to have 27 victims.
Damn.
Damn.
I almost went with 40. And I was like,
Dean.
nah.
40, bruh. It's so many.
Gosh.
We've got Emily in the lead with 1,000.
Woo.
Caitlin hanging in there with
They were not
500.
far behind.
Yeah, she's right there, right there. There's not going to be any questions for a little while because we're just going to kind of run through some dates and some murders here.
Okay.
September 25th, 1970. Jeffrey Conan was 18 and a student at the University of Texas and was abducted while hitchhiking from Austin to Braeswood Place district of Houston. He was buried at High Island Beach. So this is going to be one of the burying grounds that Dean Corll uses. He uses 3 in total, I believe. December 15th, what's this, about 3 months later, Danny Yates, who is 14, is lured with his friend James Glass from an evangelical rally by David Brooks to Corll's Yorktown apartment. James Glass is an acquaintance of Corll who also knew David Brooks. So David Brooks is literally going out and grabbing his friends and saying like, hey,
Yeah.
guys, head over to, it's $400 right here. Like, head over to
What a bad
this
friend.
guy,
House.
Dean, I know. You guys got to head over. Danny and James were strangled before being buried in Corll's boat shed. So I'm going to describe it as a boat shed, but it's really like a storage unit with a dirt floor. Dean Corll does a lot of work in here.
Perfect for burying bodies.
Oh my gosh, it's too gnarly. So, skip forward just, what do we got? A little over a month and a half to January 30th, 1971. Donald Waldrop is 15 and Jerry Waldrop is 13. They vanished on their way to visiting a bowling alley. According to Brooks, Donald's father, who was a builder, was working on the apartment next to Corll's at the time. And so Brooks goes over, sees 2 kids, the dad's working, and just like, hey, you guys come over here and hang out while your dad's working. And
Oh my God.
they're never
bold.
to be seen again. It's kind of that time where the traveler spirit has kind of got a hold of everybody. We're talking 1971 right now. So when the kids aren't happy, it's like, well, I can hitchhike to California in one day, you know? So it's kind of runaway mecca at this point. And just like I said before, there's still no missing persons unit. There is like a murder investigation unit that only had like 42 detectives, but they were also involved and were responsible for all other violent crimes. So it wasn't just murder. They had to investigate the assaults and they had to investigate it was not enough police work. And from what the last podcast guys say is that they had a very old school sheriff who was kind of taking care of everything. And there was this huge federal funding they could have taken, but the sheriff was kind of the I ain't taking no handouts kind of guy. And so they ran on their less than ample police force, which allowed Dean Corll to abduct and kill 27 young men over the Houston area in just a 3-year period.
Excellent.
Yes. So take the federal funding, police, please.
Damn.
March 9th, 1971, Dean is now 32 years old. Randall Harvey is 15 and disappeared on his way home from his job at a gas station as an attendant. He was shot in the head and buried in Dean Corll's boat shed. His remains were not identified until October of 2008.
Wow.
Yeah, 47 years.
That's sad.
That is really sad.
That is very sad. And that's why this list is kind of like that, because there are some bones that they believe might belong to another body, and then there are other theories that say, no, this is this bone to this person. And so the list is skewed. This is the one I've got, the definitive. On May 29th, 1971, David Hillegeist was 13. I think this is one of the youngest, or if not the youngest, victim. He was with another friend who's 16, Gregory Malley Winkle. Gregory was a employee of the Corll Candy. Dean does not go far for his victims. I think he was aware of the issues the city faced and took advantage to his desire and made it happen in his own sick little way. On August 17th, so this is one of the longest breaks I think we see, from May to August. Reuben Watson was 17. He left his home to go to the movies. He later called his mother to tell her he was spending the evening with Brooks. He was gagged, strangled, and buried in the boat shed.
Oh my gosh.
This Brooks motherfucker. On February 9th, Rusty Branch Jr., I like his name.
Excuse me? Rusty Branch.
His real name was Willard, but he went by Rusty. So, I figured in his honor, I'd give him the name he liked to go by.
All right.
Rusty Branch Jr. So Rusty is actually the son of a police officer. His father died of a heart attack while searching for him. So this family is just struck with tragedy over this.
Rusty Branch.
Branch was castrated before he was shot and buried in Corll's boat shed. His remains were identified in 1985, 13 years after the murder.
Sheesh.
March 24th, 1972, Frank Aguirre was 18. He was engaged to this woman, Rhonda Williams. Rhonda Williams will actually reappear in the story later in our final scene. So
let me take notes now.
Yep.
On 4/20, 1972, can you imagine how lit everybody was on this day?
Smoked himself to death in the boat shed.
Mark Scott is 17. He is a friend of Henley and Brooks. He knows them both. So why would I not trust the both of these guys? He was killed at Dean's New Schuler Street address. According to Henley, Scott was strangled and buried at High Island, although his remains have never been found.
Oh.
Wonderful. On May 21st, 1972, Johnny DeLone was 16, and he was a Heights youth that was seen last with his friend walking to a local store. He was shot in the head, but did not die immediately, so he was strangled by Wayne Henley. Yeah. So May 21st, Billy Balch is 17. He's a former employee of Corll Candy Co., and Balch was strangled by Henley and buried at High Island Beach. July 20th. Stephen Sickman is 17. He was last seen leaving a party in the Heights. He suffered several fractured ribs before he was strangled with a nylon cord and buried in the boat shed. His remains were not identified until April of 2011.
Damn.
49 years.
Dean is a busy man.
Yeah, he had a couple little helpers, though.
Boat shed.
Oh, my gosh. Wally J. Simonu was 14 and was abducted while walking to Hamilton Junior High School. He attempted to call his mother at Corll's residence before the phone was disconnected. He was strangled and buried in the boat shed. Later that day, Richard Embry was 13 and last seen with another friend parked outside of the grocery store. He was shot in the mouth and strangled at Corll's Westcott Towers address. So he did one at the boat shed and went home and was like,
Not enough.
not enough. I'm going to take
I
one
got
to the
another one
house."
in me.
Yeah, I'm going to go for seconds and bring him back to the
Oh
house.
my gosh.
Once more around the block.
Damn you, Dean
Friggin'
Corll.
Dean.
Damn you. November 12th, Richard Kepner was 19, a little old for Dean. He vanished on his way to call his fiancée from a payphone, was strangled and buried at High Island Beach. His remains weren't identified for 11 years. February 1st of 73, Joseph Lyles is 17. He was a friend of Corll who lived on the same street as Brooks. He was seen by Brooks to be grabbed by Corll at a dirt road that was subsequently buried at Jefferson County Beach. So I believe he's the only victim or one of the few that was buried there. June 4th, Billy Ray Lawrence was 15 and a friend of Elmer Wayne Henley's. He called his dad to ask if he could go fishing with, quote, some friends.
Don't do it.
He was kept alive by Corll for 4 days before he was killed and buried at Lake Sam Rayburn. So I think at this point he's done with the other lake we were using. What was it called again? It doesn't matter. It's in there. Go listen
For 250
back.
points.
Yeah, exactly. So now he's going to be burying some bodies at Lake Sam Rayburn. Let's see. John Sellers is 17. He's killed 2 days before his 18th birthday. He was shot in the chest and buried at High Island Beach. Nope, he's not done there. He was the only victim to be buried fully clothed. Marty Jones, on July 25th, was last seen along his friend and roommate, Charles Cobble, walking towards Dean Corll's apartment. So Dean Corll's apartment, if you guys can't tell, was not only just a place where Brooks and Henley invited people. It was sort of like the place where teenagers went and hung out with a 32-year-old. And like, I think we can all look back to high school, and not that you went and hung out at this place, but there was a place where 17-year-olds were more than welcome to go hang out with some dude who was a decade past the age at which he would be able to legally purchase beer for them, and is still doing so. And it was probably a gross time for all. And in this case, especially so. So August 3rd, James Dremala was 13, and he was last seen riding his bike in South Houston. He called his parents to tell them he was at a party across town. Question number 6. Someone else is going to die. Who is it going to be? Is it A, Dean himself, B, Elmer Wayne Henley, or C, David Brooks? One of our 3 main players is going to die. Who's it going to be?
I'm going Elmer. I just don't really feel like he's pulling his weight. Brooks is bringing in so many peeps,
Yeah.
you know? Like,
I'm also.
do they need Elmer? No.
No, he's just dead weight.
So are we both saying Elmer Wayne Henley then?
Henley.
Elmer.
2 say Henley. Well, here's what I'm going to do. Is instead of just giving you the answer, let's go down this story here. Let's go down the story. On August 7th, 1973, Henley invited a friend of his, Timothy Cordell Curley, so we're going to call him Tim Curley, to come hang out at Dean Corll's to have a party. Apparently, the 2 most popular things to do there, besides the pot smoking, which is a given, were to huff glue and drink beers. So the invitation was open. Come on over, Curly. Let's huff some fumes, drink some brews. So the 2 youths decide this is the night for them, and they head to Dean Corll's house and sniffed paint fumes and drank alcohol until midnight. When they left, this is straight from Wikipedia. You better believe it, and I left it in. When they left at midnight, it was to get sandwiches. I loved that. That was a.
That's true.
Why,
you can't even argue.
Why else would you leave at midnight? Hey, Dean, we're gonna go get some sandwiches. And off they went.
Here, take my car.
It's a candy truck. Henley,
music.
Yes, Henley and Curley then drove back to Houston Heights. Curley parked the vehicle close to Henley's home. Excuse me. Elmer Wayne and Curley exited the vehicle and walked towards the home. of a 15-year-old friend, Rhonda Williams. Oh, do we remember Rhonda from before?
I know her.
She's back.
Rhonda had just gotten in a very heated argument with her dad, and some stories say he may have struck her this evening. And she was like, all right, well, he's fucking drunk. I'm just going to go ahead and not be here for the rest of the night. And she left, and she had her friends Curly and Elmer Wayne here to say, hey, why don't you come hang out at my friend Dean's?
Hey, would you like a sandwich, Rhonda?
Rhonda accepts their invitation to go hang out with their friend Dean and climbed into the back of the car. The two drove towards Dean's apartment, and at approximately 3 a.m. on the morning of August 8th, 1973, Henley, Curly, and Rhonda all arrived at Corll's home, accompanied by... Oh, sorry. Of course, there it is. Rhonda, Henley, and Curly are at Dean's now. The Corll was not happy that there was a girl at his house. He was livid.
Yeah.
Girls allowed. It says it on the clubhouse door.
Girls are, yeah.
That's I mean, to me, but like we joke, but I think he pulled Elmer into another room, like pinned him against a wall, and was like, what the fuck were you thinking bringing a woman into this fucking house? You brought a girl to my home, and really fucking gave it to him. And so Elmer just explains, hey, like she, her dad kicked her ass tonight. We're just kind of looking out for her. She'll be gone in the morning. Like, what do you have to worry about? And Dean's like, damn it, Wayne. Son of a bitch. All right. Fuck. You know how to cut to the core of me. So he kind of joins the party from a distance, as Dean is known to do, and just sort of watches them continue to huff their fumes and drink their beers. Dean is livid. There's a girl in his home. He calms down because Elmer, he likes to go by Wayne. I'm gonna go Elmer. Elmer appeared to calm down Dean, and Dean says, "You know what? Fuck it. Here's some weed. Here's some beer. Let's just all put it behind us. Relax. You guys do that." So they drink until like 5 a.m. All of them pass out in the living room, and Elmer wakes up to find Dean snapping handcuffs onto his wrist. And by this time, his ankles had already been bound together by nylon rope. Curly and Williams lay beside Elmer, securely bound with nylon rope, gagged with adhesive tape, and lying face down on the floor. Curly had also been stripped naked. Corll told Henley that he was furious he had brought a girl to his house and explained that he was going to kill all 3 of them after he had assaulted and tortured Curly. He repeatedly kicked Williams in the chest, then dragged him. Remember, this is like a 15-year-old girl. He's just kicking the shit out of her while she's on the ground tied up. Repeatedly kicked her in the chest. Placed a 22 caliber pistol against the stomach of Wayne Henley and just threatened to shoot him repeatedly. Wayne is somehow able to calm down Dean and tells him, like, hey, let me out. We'll do like we always do. I'll help you fucking take care of them. And, like, come on. We've got the routine. Like, don't fuck it up now. Like, just because you're mad about this. Help me help you. And again, Wayne just knows the way right to Dean's heart, and he agrees and unties Wayne, and then carried Curly and Williams into the bedroom and tied them to opposite sides of his torture board. Now,
because of course he has a torture board.
A lot of our victims went on the torture board. I didn't really want to talk too much about it because I don't want to give him credit for inventing something. But the torture board was essentially like a 2-inch thick slab with holes drilled in each corner that allowed for ropes and handcuffs to...
Excellent.
Yes. So you'll have to use your imagination from there. Nope. I pantomime for you guys, and everybody else will get that 4 seconds of dead air cut out, and they'll have to imagine what just happened. So they're on the torture board. Dean, for whatever reason, is fucking trusting Elmer at this point. He hands Elmer a gigantic hunting knife. We've all seen this giant knife. And orders him to cut away Rhonda Williams' clothes, insisting that while he rapes and kills Curly, Elmer would likewise do the same to Williams. Wayne begins cutting away Williams' clothes as Corll undressed and began to assault and torture Curly. Both Curly and Williams had awakened, obviously, by this point. So no night of drinking is going to keep you asleep through an assault from Dean Corll, I don't think. Curly at this point starts screaming. Even through the tape, it's kind of loud. He's clearly in a lot of pain. Rhonda turns and looks at Wayne and asks, like, is this for real? Like, what's happening? And Elmer says, like, it's real. Sorry. And I think Wayne has his moment right here because Rhonda says, are you going to do anything about it? And so Wayne looks over to Dean and he says, I want to take her into the other room. And Dean just ignores him. And so Elmer grabs the pistol that Corll had aimed at his stomach just a few minutes ago and says, you've gone too far, Dean. Like, we have to stop. This is too much. And Dean turns and just starts kind of not running, but, doing the Terminator fast walk towards him and says, kill me, Wayne. And at this time, Wayne's now starting to walk backwards because, I think there was like a true love here between these two boys, as gross as it may seem. And so he's backing up and Dean keeps charging him and Wayne fires 2 rounds. The first one hitting Dean in the head, but just grazing him. And we're talking a .22 pistol, so small caliber pistol. Grazes him, kind of bounces off, I think, the outside of his skull. Shoots him another time, hits him in the chest. He kind of spins 180 and Elmer puts 5 more in his back. Dean drops dead, facing a wall in the hallway of his own home. Elmer looks at Curly and Rhonda and tells them, like, you guys should just go.
Party's over. You guys could leave. Yeah.
And
don't tell anyone about this.
And until now, nobody even realized they were there.
Right.
You just blew the lid off of everything.
And at this point, Curly's like, hey, like, we got to call the cops. Like, this isn't like we just leave now. So Elmer agrees, and they looked up the number for the Pasadena police. There wasn't a 911 deal. I think they went non-emergency line. And at 8:24, right, on August 8th, 1973, Elmer placed a call to the Pasadena police. The operator answered, and he just told the operator, like, I killed a man. You guys need to get down here. I've killed a man. And it's kind of the wait, are you sure? Yeah, I just killed a man. I'm sure. Send someone down here. Gives them the address, 2020 Lamar Drive, Pasadena, Texas. Curly and Williams and Henley waited upon the 3 teens waited on the porch until the police arrived. When the police arrive, they see the gun that they had thrown out onto the driveway. So it was very clear that the weapon was clear. The kids are on the driveway. And later, Curly would note that he told both of them, I could have got $200 for you guys.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So, there's that just shows you where Elmer Wayne Henley is at this point. Right. And he also mentioned that he had done that, killed somebody by shooting 4 or 5 times already. So it wasn't really tough for him to do. So minutes later, the Pasadena police car arrived at 2020 Lamar Drive. The 3 teenagers were sitting on the porch, the gun in the driveway. Henley informed the officer that he was the individual who had made the call and indicated that Corll was lying dead inside the house. After confiscating the pistol and placing Henley, Williams, and Curly inside a patrol car, the officer entered the bungalow and discovered Corll's dead body in the hallway. He came back, read Elmer's Miranda rights. In response to being read his Miranda rights, Elmer screams, "I don't care who knows about it. I have to get it off my chest." In custody, Elmer explained that for almost 3 years, he and David Brooks had helped procure teenage boys, obviously a lot of their own friends and people from around town, for $200 each. So it's all coming out now. He gave a statement admitting that he had assisted Corll in several abductions and murders of teenage boys, informing police that Corll had buried most of the victims in a boat shed in southwest Houston, and others at Lake Sam Rayburn and High Island Beach. So, no shortage of information from Elmer once he's in custody. I think he had finally reached his break. I don't think Elmer was a killer.
He had word vomit show.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I feel bad for the things I said. I mean, I don't feel bad for the things I said about him earlier, but I just didn't see this one coming.
Yeah.
It's that's I told you at the top. It's an interesting
He's
story.
like partial hero right now, right, Elmer?
I mean, in a way, I think that the heroic thing would have been to probably stop him the first time he'd ever been there, witnessing a murder.
Well,
But-
that passed.
Yeah. I mean,
Next heroic.
he
Not killing
definitely
people is definitely more heroic than killing a killer at the end, because when you kill a killer, the number of killers in the world stays the same.
Oh.
Dang.
Yeah, that was deep.
You added one.
But you took one away.
Dang.
So, the police, they don't really believe Elmer's claims. They are just thinking like, all right, we've got a case here. It's against you for killing this guy, Dean Corll. That, they figured it was just like something, there's drug fueled, because you can look around, it's full of weed and glue and beer bottles. They just figured
sandwich press.
Yeah, they just figured it was some fight that turned raw, and Elmer pulled a 22 on his good old boy Dean and pulled the trigger. But he's very insistent. Like, this is the case. You got to talk to David Brooks. You got to take me to this boat garage. I'll show you everything. Like, let's do this. So, he recalls the names of 3 of the boys that he didn't know, Cobble, Hillegeist, and Jones. So David Brooks had procured the 3 of them, and the police kind of look into this, look at some of the missing persons cases that have been reported and not investigated, because there isn't a fucking team for that. And these 3 names match. So they are a little more inclined to believe the things that they're saying. David Hillegeist had been reported missing the summer of 1971. The other 2 boys had only been missing for 2 weeks. The floor of the room where the 3 teenagers had been tied was covered in thick plastic sheeting as well. So it was very clear that there was going to be some type of murder, that was taking place that wasn't the one that took place in the kitchen and hallway. The police also in Dean Corll's home found the plywood torture board measuring 7 by 3 feet with handcuffs in each corner. Also found at his house was the large hunting knife, rolls of clear plastic of the same type used to cover the floor, and a portable radio rigged to a pair of dry cells to give it increased volume. So he just had this radio. I think it was for drowning out the murders. It's handy, I guess, if nothing less. And he also, in his collection, was a number of both homemade and commercial dildos and thin glass tubes and lengths of rope. Greg, you would hate to hear what those glass tubes are for.
I know what they're for.
The Ford Econoline van belonging to Corll was parked in the driveway, and pretty much everything they found in his house, he also had a little bit of out in the van too. Because why wouldn't you? It's your mobile station, right?
Who doesn't travel with homemade dildos?
So he actually had reinforced pegboard walls on the inside of the van. So it was just a very strong, functional murder van.
Ew.
Yeah. So also found in Dean's backyard was a wood crate with air holes drilled into it.
Oh my.
Yes.
Oh,
Inside the
weirdo.
crate were several strands of different human hair.
Ew.
Wayne Himley agreed to accompany police to Corll's boat shed in southwest Houston, where he claimed the bodies of most of the victims would be found. Inside Corll's boat shed, police found a half-stripped car, which turned out to have been stolen from a used car lot in March. They also found a child's bike, empty bags of lime, and a box full of teenage boys' clothing. Police began digging in the soft areas of dirt that they could very clearly see had just been used, and almost immediately found the body of a young blonde teenage boy lying face up, encased in clear plastic, and buried beneath a layer of lime. They continued excavating and found several more bodies on the top layer. They brought in...
Wow.
This was like a fairly large storage unit. We're talking like garage size, too.
God.
So they bring in, like, they called them trustees, but they're inmates. So they brought in these inmates to help dig up the floor here. And so they dig up, I believe, 9 boys on the top level. And that's just it. It was the top level. They realized
Wow.
that below that layer
level?
of boys,
That's gross.
Yeah.
there's
multiple levels.
there was another layer or level of boys. So they continued excavating through the earth of the shed, unearthing remains of more victims of varying stages of decomposition. Most of the bodies were found wrapped in thick, clear plastic sheeting. Some victims had been shot, others strangled, the ligature still wrapped around their necks. All of the victims found had been sodomized, and most found had evidence of sexual torture. Pubic hairs had been plucked out, genitals had been chewed off.
Ew, ew, ew.
And just in case everybody wasn't with Greg and knowing, these glass tubes had been inserted into urethras and then crushed while inside. Yeah. He would take cloth rags and insert them into their mouths and use a lot of adhesive tape to keep them quiet and muffle their screams. In some instances, he had also castrated live victims. Several genitals were found inside sealed plastic bags.
So you just saved him for later.
So many more years.
Yeah. On August 8th, 1973. Oh, you know what? Actually. So they're out there at this boat shed, right? And there's this member of the media, and this guy's like, you know, the technology guy. And it's 1973, and this guy has a car phone. So,
Wow.
yeah, right. At this point, it's just later in the day. We're talking the same day that he killed Dean. They go to this boat shed. So this is still same day, same. So Wayne says, hey, I need to call my mom. And that call is recorded. So this is the call between Elmer Wayne Henley and his mother from the boat storage shed from the car phone. Lend me your ear for 48 seconds.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Mama,
Who's this?
it's Wayne.
Yes, this is Mama, baby.
Mama,
Huh?
I killed Dean.
Wayne?
Ma'am?
What are you doing?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, God. Where are you?
It's all right.
Wayne?
It's all right. It's all right.
Where are you?
I'm out of his warehouse.
Where?
Out at that warehouse he keeps.
Can I come out there?
Yeah, yes. No,
It's on Highland Park.
she can't. No, you can't come. I'm with the police, Mama.
So that's it.
Mama.
Yeah. I
Not
killed
like
Dean.
Can I come? And he goes, yes. And then somebody in the background goes, no.
The cop's like, no, what the fuck? You just killed a guy. No, you're not going
Never
anywhere.
mind,
You
Mama.
get guests. Yeah.
Yes. So that was, I don't know, I always like to have a little sound clip if I can. So
She didn't even question him though. She wasn't like, wait, what?
I
What did you
think
say? You did what? She just was
Yeah.
like, oh.
I don't think she was that surprised.
Yeah,
Right.
she was not.
right. So on August 8th, later in the day, a total of 8 corpses were initially uncovered in the boat shed. And later in the day, accompanied by his father, David Brooks presented himself at the Houston police station in the evening and gave a statement denying any participation in the murders, but admitting to having known that Corll had raped and killed 2 youths in 1970. On August 9th, 2 days later, police accompanied Henley to Lake Sam Rayburn in San Augustine County, where Henley told police that Corll had buried 4 victims that killed that year. 2 additional bodies were found in shallow graves. and police found 9 additional bodies in the boat shed on August 9th, 1973. David Brooks gave a full confession that evening, admitting to being present at several killings and assisting in several burials, although he continued to deny any direct participation in the murders. He agreed to accompany police to High Island Beach to assist in the search for the bodies of the victims. This shit, like, there's so much information going. It's August 9th. This is 1.5 days after the murder of Dean Corll. On August 10th, 1973, Hindley again accompanied police to Lake Sam Rayburn, where 2 more bodies were found buried just 10 feet apart. As with the 2 bodies found the previous day, both victims had been tortured and severely beaten, particularly around the head. That afternoon, both Hindley and Brooks accompanied police to High Island Beach, leading police to the shallow graves of 2 more victims. So it's just like every time they go out there, they're like, oh yeah, over here. And they find 2 more fucking people they've killed, right? So on August 13th, 1973, at the time of the killing spree, was the worst case of serial murder in terms of number of victims in the United States, exceeding the 25 murders attributed by Juan Corona from California, who was arrested in 1971 for killing 25 men.
Shout out to California.
The Houston mass murders, as they became known as, hit the headlines all over the world. Even Pope Paul VI commented on the atrocious nature of the crimes and offered sympathy to relatives who had died. Yo, the fucking Pope commented on Dean Corll's murders.
He made it.
Police were inundated with inquiries regarding missing boys from parents across the United States. So, like, did Dean take my son?
Aww.
Going back a little bit to the fact that he had exceeded the number by Juan Corona, 4 years later, somebody will exceed his record of 27. Who is it? There is no multiple choice.
A few years later.
So we're just talking late 70s then.
Is that...
Do we give initials?
You can
Son of
Just the
Sam?
first name?
you can do whatever you want. Who surpassed him 4 years after that?
I can't remember when he was killing people.
I have no idea.
I'm going to stick with Son of Sam, that killer.
Okay.
I don't know his real name.
David Berkowitz. Caitlyn, you have no answer? Just name another serial killer to get something in there.
Charles Manson.
No and no. No points for anybody. 4 years later, John Wayne Gacy would break that record. I believe Gacy had 33. Yeah, congratulations.
Was he the one that dressed up like a clown?
That is Pogo the Clown. You are correct.
That's terrifying.
Yes. After all the discoveries of the bodies in the boat shed, Hindley claims that there should be 2 more that they could find inside the shed. And I think that's where we kind of run into those numbers skewing that we were talking about earlier. Families of Corll's victims were highly critical of the Houston Police Department, which had been quick to list the missing boys as runaways who had not been considered worthy of any major investigation. We kind of see this a lot with like sex workers in big cities with serial killers. They're like, they skip town. It's no big deal. Or the police literally say like, we were told not to investigate sex worker disappearances. We didn't have the funding for that. It was kind of the same case here with teenagers in the 70s, apparently. It rivals that at least. Yeah, just a lot of runaways. So, let's see. By April of 1974, 21 of the victims had been identified, all but 4 of the youths having either lived in or had close connections to Houston Heights. 2 more teenagers were identified in 83 and 85. We talked about those guys earlier. The other youth, Willard Branch, one of the discovered youths was Willard Branch, who lived in Oak Forest District of Houston. On August 13th, a grand jury convened in Harris County to hear evidence against Hindley and Brooks. The first witnesses to testify were Rhonda Williams and Tim Curley, who testified to the events on August 7th and 8th, leading to the death of Dean Corll. Another witness who testified to this experience at the hands of Dean Corll was Billy Rittinger. So he was another guy who was very close to the end and got away. I believe at Elmer's hand. Come on, Dean, don't do it, man. Or, Dean, don't do it.
Mama.
Mama.
That's why I think a soundbite like that can really give something like this. You know, it's like something that you'll always have in your, at least me, like every time I think of this case, the first thing I think about is Mama.
Oh,
So
he just wanted his mama.
He kind of gets
voice.
he gets a little like, I killed Dean. Like, I'm never going to fucking see you again, huh? So after listening to over 6 hours of testimony from various people, the jury initially indicted Henley on 3 murder charges and Brooks on 1. Bail was set at $100,000. Greg, can I get the 1973 conversion for $100,000? The district attorney did request that Henley undergo a psychiatric examination to deduce whether he was mentally competent to stand trial. But his attorney, Charles Melder, opposed the decision, stating the move would violate Henley's constitutional rights. So things that people go for now, like, come on, I'm insane. Like, you got to let me be insane. They offered that to Henley, and his attorney's like, come on, what does he look like, some kind of insane guy?
Hey, come on.
How much, Greg?
That is just over $500,000, $551,319.82.
Still seems low.
Wow.
Seems low, like a $500,000 bail for murder. Seems low.
Well, and you only have to put up 10% of your bond.
Dang.
So
that murder only costs $50,000.
What a deal.
By the time the grand jury had completed its investigation, Henley had been indicted for a total of 6 murders and Brooks for 4. Henley was not charged with the death of Dean Corll, which was ruled to be in self-defense. Yay!
Yay, small win.
Elmer Wayne Henley and David Owen Brooks were tried separately for their roles in their murders. Henley was brought to trial in San Antonio July 1st, 1974, and charged with 6 murders committed between March of 1972 and July of 1973. Prosecution called dozen of witnesses, including Curley and Rhonda Williams, Billy Rittinger, who had also been lured to Corll's Schuler Street address by Henley, Brooks, and Corll in 1972. Rittinger testified that Corll's home, he was tied to the torture board and assaulted repeatedly before being released. Other incriminating testimony came from police officers who read from Henley's written statements. In one of his confessions, Henley had described his luring of 2 victims for murder who had been brought to trial, Charles Cobble and Marty Jones.
Awkward reunion.
Everything. Yeah, like he's bringing out everything, and everybody who was involved who's not dead is fucking there.
Like, remember me?
Yeah, this is very...
remember me, motherfucker?
Exactly. Let's see. Henley confessed that Jones was tied to the board and forced to watch Charles Cobble be assaulted, tortured, and shot to death before he himself was raped, tortured, and strangled with a Venetian blind cord. Oh. The 2 youths were killed July 27th, 1973, 2 days after they had been reported missing. Several victims' parents had to leave the courtroom to regain their composure as police and medical examiners described how their relatives were tortured and murdered. Throughout the trial, the state introduced a total of 82 pieces of evidence, including Corll's torture board and one of the boxes used to transport the victims. Inside the box,
imagine being the guy that has to carry the torture board into the courtroom.
Like, how do I carry? Do I like put it on my head and balance it like I would if I were working construction, or like do I?
You just throw it under the arm and then like pin it against the leg.
Oh my god!
Set it on the foot and carry it one
Make
step
sure
at
you're
a
not
time.
mall grabbing it.
Yeah, like it's just to be the guy that's got to bring all this stuff in.
So Elmer's defense attorney steps in again and tells him probably best idea if you do not take the stand. His defense attorney, Will Gray, did cross-examine several witnesses, but did not call any of his own witnesses or experts for the defense. This guy's like, whatever, I'm getting paid anyway, and you fucking killed him. Come on, dude, let's get this shit over with.
You're right.
Solid strategy.
Question number 8. Caitlin, you can still win right now
I'm wagering it all.
if you nail the answer
Okay.
and Emily does not. Now, if you nail the answer, you're going to win it all. That's how it's going to go. So you got to nail it to win it all.
No pressure. No pressure.
All right, let me take a sip of water. This is huge.
So nervous.
On July
I
16th,
mean, it's pretty much the most important moment of my life. So, yeah.
July 16th,
I've got faith.
1974. How many years did Wayne Henley get sentenced to? Remember, he was indicted for 6 murders. You guys don't even have to go back on your notes. I'll tell you that. How
Okay.
many years did he get sentenced to? You got yours, Caitlin? You got it?
Yeah.
All right, just throw it out there because you need it. How many years was it? This is for all the marbles.
It's like one of those trick things.
It's not. I mean, you
It
throw it
feels
out
like a
there.
trick
I'm going to
thing.
let Emily throw hers out there. It's not a trick. It happened.
All right. So you can't just say life in prison. You need like a year, an amount of years.
Yeah, yes, because they convicted him of this crime and sentenced him to this amount of years.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go with 60 years.
I was going to go with like 157.
157.
Yeah.
You're going to get points, but it's not going to be enough to win. I'm sorry. On July 16th, 1974, Elmer Wayne Henley was sentenced to 6 consecutive 99-year terms for a total of 594 years in prison for each of the murders for which he was charged.
Dang.
Jeez.
500.
I was just
Maybe
gonna say,
only
I thought it was
served
something like
13
500 or
of them.
600 years.
Yeah. He appealed his sentence and conviction, contending the jury in his initial trial had not been sequestered. His attorney's objections to news media being present in the courtroom had been overruled, citing that his defense attorney's attempts to present evidence contending that the initial trial should not have been held in San Antonio because it was too high profile in that area, and had also been overruled by the judge. Henley's
Weren't the bones
appeal...
enough?
His appeal was upheld, and he was awarded a retrial December 1978, and in the retrial was sentenced to 6 consecutive 99-year sentences for a total of 594 years. David Brooks was brought to trial February 27, 1975. He had been indicted for 4 murders committed between December of 1970 and June of 73. If you guys remember, Brooks was the OG. He brought Elmer Wayne in.
Yeah.
So he sort of got switched out. I think he aged out. Brooks' defense attorney Jim Skelton argued that his client had not committed any murders and attempted to portray Corll and to a lesser degree Henley as being active participants in the actual killings. Assistant DA Tommy Dunn dismissed the defense's contention outright, and at one point telling the jury, quote, "This defendant was in on this murderous rampage from the very beginning. He attempts to inform you he was a cheerleader, if nothing else. That's what he is telling you about his presence. You know he was in on it," end quote.
You
Damn, Tommy Dunn. Fucking Tommy Gundam. Tommy's badass. That's pretty much all that I got to say about that. David Brooks' trial lasted less than 1 week. The jury deliberated less than 90 minutes before they reached their final verdict. He was found guilty of Lawrence's murder on March 4th, 1975, and sentenced to life imprisonment. He showed no emotion as the sentence was passed, although his, and I guess, I don't know how, wife burst into tears. Brooks also appealed against his sentence, contending that the signed confessions used against him were taken without his being informed of his legal rights, but his appeal was dismissed in May of 1979. Both Henley and Brooks are serving life sentences and still alive and still in prison. That is everything that I have for Dean Corll, Elmer Wayne Henley, and David Brooks.
And Mama.
Mama.
Dang.
Wow.
That was like a 3 for 1.
Yeah, how
Yeah.
do you guys feel after having gone through that roller coaster? We did a
I
very
love
long
to-
episode too, by the way.
I want to Google their pictures.
Yeah.
first and foremost.
Please do. Yeah. Well,
I kind of want to see a picture of the box with holes in it. I just imagine like an animal cage with like a sticker that says fragile on it, so no one really messes with it.
think a lot more homemade looking. So
Like a cartoon
DIY.
yes, a lot more
Acme box.
DIY. So
Yeah, it was a DIY.
thank you guys for hanging out with us late night for you guys. I know it's 3 hours later than it is here, so very appreciated.
Best way to spend my Tuesday night. I couldn't think of anything greater.
Well, I am very honored, and for the record, that knife you bought me cuts very well. I won't tell you what I've been
Yay.
cutting with it.
Please don't.
Before we roll out, co-host Greg, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm still processing.
Yeah,
Aw.
a lot to process here.
You want to talk about anything
We're here for you.
offline?
The one thing that
Yeah, I
I
was
know
gonna say maybe off the air. I don't know.
Sorry. Is there anything you guys would like to add to the show on the air?
Well, no one's going to see it on the air, but if you can see in my, see that little sticker back there?
Yeah.
Oh, shit, son.
A serial chiller sticker hangs.
It motivates me every day to work.
Emily will mail you one out.
Oh my God, thanks, guys.
I'm going to have to mail one out to Greg at the same time because I haven't done that yet.
Oh,
And I can't wait to hear what your studio is going to be named.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We'll find out soon. Sarah will let us know when we send her a list. Sarah, I'm sorry we haven't sent you a list already.
Been busy mailing stickers
Well,
to everyone but me.
I just wanted to make one last little
Mama. It's Wayne.
I need to find his picture right now.
Yeah,
I
I,
like-
I
did
definitely
he-
have to put a face to that voice.
Did he have brothers or sisters?
Elmer Wayne Henley, I do believe, did. He was not an only
Oh,
child.
okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say because calling somebody it doesn't I don't have any brothers or sisters, but when I call my mom, I still go, Mom, and she's like, what? And I go, it's me. And she's like, yeah, I know. And I'm like, oh, right. So I was just,
And then you're like, I killed someone. And your mom's like, oh.
Can I
figured.
come there? Yeah.
you know what? I told her I was gonna come to town, and she was like, for what? And then I didn't answer for a long time, and then she was like, what are you coming to town for? And I was like, satanic ritual. I need a place to lay low afterwards. And she was like, yeah, come on by. You can stay in the guest room. And I was like, yes.
Cool.
Cool Mom strikes again. Well, thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, co-host Greg. And thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Dude, it's so cool. You guys, I appreciate it. I know it's late, and I'll let you guys get some Z's. Thank you, everybody, for listening to episode 43 of the Serial Chillers podcast. All right, that was episode 43. Thank you guys for sticking in with us. Dean Corll was one of the worst of all time. The weird and strange part for me, besides the obvious, is that we only know of Dean what we heard from the people that knew him. Dean is one of those serial killers where we didn't get his side of the story. We didn't get his insight as to what made him tick. So a little different for me. I feel a little unfulfilled by the fact that old Elmer shot him. And fucking Elmer and David are still alive. So it's definitely a weird triangle situation. And we did the Briley brothers very early, and those were it was another kind of serial killing team, but I don't know. This one has an interesting twist. As far as I know, there wasn't one that had killed another before this. I digress. Congratulations to Emily on her dominant victory. Sorry, Caitlyn. You'll be back to fight another day, though. If you have any suggestions for future episodes or questions and comments about this one, please reach out. You can do it in so many ways. Is anybody still listening? Facebook, Serial Chillers Podcast. Facebook group, Serial Chillers Podcast. It's a closed group. Just wait for acceptance. We get it every day or two. The Instagram is at Serial Chillers Podcast. Twitter is at Chillers Podcast. Email is serialchillerspodcast@gmail.com. Call or text the show at 1-805-666-2513. If I have it off Do Not Disturb and you call, I will answer. I will talk to a listener. Call me. Seriously, don't make it weird. serialchillerspodcast.threadless.com for all your merch needs, and Serial Chillers Podcast that nobody really goes to. But if you guys want me to update it, you just say the word and I will update it. Is anyone still listening? Outlines for all the episodes from season 2 are on there, up to episode 41, I believe. I'm behind. Don't kill me. Patreon, as always. Thank you everybody who gave in March. That was astounding. Thank you so much. If you don't know what it is, you can give as little as $1 a month. If you like the show, if you've ever thought, man, I wonder how I can help out, Patreon is the way. So just thank you to everybody. Thank you to Sarah especially, who bought the studio level advertisement. So she is the Patreon donor who has purchased the rights to name the studio, which we will release on episode 44. So thank you again, Sarah. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. I know we say this a lot, but it's going well and we appreciate it. So keep doing what you're doing. We'll keep doing what we're doing. And remember, don't talk to strangers.